seated. Gregory had worked months. He had read, he had prayed, he had pondered. He had broken down his inhibitions and his identity. He had allowed himself to be a clean slate and an open mind. He implemented baby steps at home. Try placing a tzedakah box in your kitchen, the rabbi had said. Every day when you come home, put a little tzedakah in there. Gregory had slowly felt his reflection in the mirror change. Who is this new man? He asked himself. Who was the man I had been? One morning, after reading, after writing, after questioning, after crying, after yelling, he had woken up and he had looked in the mirror. Wow, he thought, this is who I am. I'm a Jew. You're ready, the rabbi said with a smile. Now, here Gregory stands, ready to mark the transition from who he was to who he is. He stands unclothed, naked as the day he was born. Before him lies a pool of warm, clean, living water. Behind him stands a witness, and outside his rabbi listens in for the witness's seal of approval. He hears the flowing water in the kosher water tanks. He smells the distinct scent of fresh water, not a salty scent, but rather the smell of algae. He feels the warm, metallic rings as he grabs hold and enters his new life. As he descends the 7 steps into the mikveh, the welcoming waters send visceral shocks across his body. He continues until the waters settle around his upper torso. He takes a deep breath and submerges entirely. Lifts his feet so he is fully surrounded by holiness, then reemerges. He repeats this process 3 times, uttering prayers between each plunge. The witness verifies his kosher conversion. Finally, he ascends the same 7 steps he had previously followed downward and covers himself. Welcome home, Gregory, his rabbi smiles. Welcome home. Entering the mikveh, the ritual bath, is one of our people's most precious, dating back at least 2,000 years. Its use has varied over millennia, and its meaning has evolved. Today, the mikveh can mark a wide variety of experiences for Jews. Its living waters cleanse our spirit as well as our bodies. In this week's Torah portion, Toldot, we encounter the living waters of the mikveh, hidden within the parched land of the desert. We find Isaac and Rebekah have grown older. Their personal spring of life and wealth has been met head on by a famine throughout the land. As they were heading toward Egypt, which was common practice in those days during a famine, God told them to stop and to remain in the land of the Philistines. Trapped in a barren, desolate land, Isaac redug the wells that had been originally carved out by his father Abraham. The wells had been claimed by the Philistines before Isaac boldly refashioned them. He uncovered long-forgotten sustenance in the wilderness. Water in the arid waste was, indeed, the means to life. In fact, the Torah calls these waters Mayyim Chayyim, which can be translated as waters of life or living waters. And the phrase usually refers to naturally flowing water, whether in a river or a spring. And later in our history, the phrase Mayyim Chayyim also comes to refer to the living waters of the mikveh. Immersion has meant something very specific to the rabbis for most of Jewish history. Yet today, for those Jews who wish to cling to tradition, yet find new meaning in the mikveh, there are 2 contemporary ways to approach ritual immersion. The first is immersion in the mikveh to mark when the unplanned in our lives happens as a way to mark a new chapter. The second way is to enter the mikveh with no agenda at all, as a way of checking in with ourselves and to just see what happens. For most of Jewish history, the mikveh, or the ritual bath, was meant for only a few specific occasions. It was meant to mark ritual purification, so one could be fit to perform certain services in the holy temple. Typically, women would visit the mikveh after menstruation or after childbirth. Men would visit the mikveh after a nocturnal emission, and utensils would be dipped so they could be used for ritual use. Someone like Gregory would immerse to convert to Judaism and to be welcomed home. The Rambam, a 13th century commentator and philosopher, says, the 109th commandment in the Torah is that we are commanded to immerse in the waters of a mikveh and thereby be purified from whichever form of ritual impurity previously existed. In other words, immersion in the mikveh is the only way to participate in temple rituals. And the Rambam clarifies that ritual immersion is not a commandment every member of Israel must do, but rather it is something one can choose to do in order to be ritually pure. Jewish law is very precise as to how a mikveh is to be built and how one enters it. Firstly, the mikveh must be built into the ground or built as an essential part of a building. Thus, a bathtub, unfortunately, cannot count as one. Additionally, those who immerse themselves must wash their bodies thoroughly prior to immersion. Dirt and oil should be washed away. Then, they must be as naked as the day they were born. This means no makeup, no jewelry, and so on. Their hair must be well brushed to undo any knots. And all this is meant to ensure that the waters of the mikveh touch every crevice, nook, and cranny on the body. Only once these guidelines are strictly followed according to tradition can someone be declared tahor, or ritually pure. There are some Jews, though, less concerned with whether they are, in fact, ritually pure. They may not yearn to participate in temple worship. So, is there any reason for these Jews ever to set foot in a mikveh? What do these Jews do when life throws impurity their way? What do they do when they feel they have been thrust into a state of uncleanliness and seek to crawl out from the depths of physical or spiritual tameh to the light of tahor? Perhaps the first of the alternative ways to engage with the mikveh can assist these Jews in their time of need. Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, who blogs under the name Velveteen Rabbi, offers insight into the power of the mikveh. She writes, water is a rabbinic symbol of Torah because it nourishes and sustains us. Water makes us think of rebirth, of renewal. There may be times in our lives when we feel we need to mark a moment of rebirth. Maybe someone's ended a relationship. Maybe they've even finalized a divorce. Maybe they want to start anew, to dip 3 times and say, I stand alone, a complete person. At these moments, the ritual of stepping down into the mikveh's waters acts as a scene change, a new chapter, a Me 2.0 update for those techies in the room. At these moments, the mikveh helps us respond to what life has given us. At these moments, ritual can be our guiding light. Some of us may face extraordinarily difficult decisions. For these moments, the mikveh can mark the beginning of healing. Recently, a woman chose to terminate her pregnancy, and she explained to a journalist with Tablet magazine that she wanted to mark the moment with a Jewish ritual. We mark every other experience in a Jewish way, one of her family members said. Why not mark this one? They searched and found the Mayyim Chayyim mikvah in Newton, Massachusetts. According to the tablet article, the rite, written by Mattia Rania Angelou, Deborah Isaacson, and Judith D. Coomer, a poet, a psychologist, and a rabbi, respectively. The rite is so exceptional that women who discover it are often astounded to find that it exists. It consists of 3 immersions in the mikveh, interspersed with short blessings and prayers, and it opens with the kavanah, the intention by which a person prepares herself to do a mitzvah in the fullness of heart, asking God for help to begin healing from this difficult decision to interrupt the promise of life. The Mayyim Chayyim mikvah's goal with this rite is to ensure Jewish women who choose abortion or who suffer a miscarriage don't go through the ordeal alone in silence and fear. Rather, Jewish women can find spiritual recourse or guidance through their loss with a holy Jewish ritual. Others have chosen to use the mikvah to mark the moment in which they have overcome a great trial. The West Side Mikvah in Manhattan has accepted people who wish to mark that their cancer has gone into remission. And the Mayyim Chayyim mikvah has created a ritual for Jews who wish to acknowledge the beginning of healing after suffering abuse. I know that our own Tamar has participated in writing contemporary rituals as well. Like Isaac, who redug the wells for his father, some Jews have chosen to acknowledge the power of Mayyim Chayyim, of living waters, to sustain life. Just when we think we are trapped in an empty, dry land, we find the miracle of divine providence. The ritual of stepping into the waters of the mikvah can mark a new chapter in one's life, but it's not magical. It's not that the mikvah itself that creates a change of state in one's existence. It all hinges on what you bring to the experience. Everything depends on one's kavanah, one's intention. Our sages say, when one is immersed but did not intend to purify oneself, it is as if that person did not immerse. In other words, it's not the waters that do the purifying. It's the one who is immersing. In this way, the mikvah is perhaps more about Chayyim, where one is in life, than it is about the Mayyim, the waters. And herein lies the second contemporary alternative for immersion. Rabbi Berenblatt, the Velveteen rabbi, suggests one should enter the waters of the mikvah with no expectations at all and just see what arises. One should dismantle one's self-identity and ask, who am I? For as 20th century American Orthodox physicist, Kabbalist, and Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan says, ego is the essence of permanence, while the water of the mikvah is the essence of impermanence. If one follows this practice of entering the mikvah with no expectations, then immersion in the mikvah resembles the ancient practice of meditatio, which Shadi Barch, a contemporary scholar and professor of classical literature at the University of Chicago, describes as self-questioning, self-review, self-command, and self-exhortation. We self-question. We enter the waters and ask ourselves, who are we at this moment? What is my life? We self-review. We look at the good and the bad. We decide what to keep, what to change. Where has my life been? We self-command. We decide how every moment after this immersion will be different. Where is my life heading? And we self-exhort. We urge ourselves to emerge from the waters and create change. How will I begin again? Now, this practice is very different from entering the mikvah in response to something life has sent our way. The former practice is a response to the divine touch in our lives, The latter is a pursuit for the divine within us. What good is entering the mikvah if one is not fully present or fully invested? Our friend Gregory, who chose to convert to Judaism, used the mikvah to mark a change in status. His immersion represented a conclusion to a lengthy process of meditatio, of cheshbon hanefesh, of accounting of the soul. Again, it wasn't the water that changed him. He had already been changed. His immersion, his ritual, marked and celebrated his change in status. On Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, in ancient days, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, used the mikvah to mark his own change in status in preparation for uttering the ineffable name of God. Only after several immersions and several changes in status was the Kohen Gadol ready to approach the divine presence of God and pray on behalf of himself and Israel. Contemporary liturgists are creating new and innovative rituals for those Jews who choose to immerse to mark the change in their status. For instance, a Jew within the trans community can struggle with their identity, with their status. They may engage in their own form of meditatio, wondering, who am I? Some of these Jews may choose to mark a change in their self through a holy ritual, and there are liturgists, such as Catherine Madsen and Joy Layden, who have responded to help these Jews turn their struggle with self-identity into a moment of immersion in the mikvah. This ritual simulates death and rebirth. The one who is marking their transition from one gender to another recites, "Blessed are you, God, who has not made me," and they recite the gender to which they are transitioning. Then, the family members who are present tear their clothing and recite the mourner's Kaddish, which is traditionally recited for those who have died. Various psalms are read, and family members pour 3 buckets of water over the individual, imitating the ritual for cleansing a body in preparation for burial. The individual transitioning recites the blessing for immersing in the mikvah, then emerges and exits the room to dress in the clothes in which they feel most comfortable. When the person returns, the witnesses thank God for reviving the dead, and that person takes on a new name within Israel. The family welcomes the individual as a baby is welcomed into the covenant of Abraham as an infant, and all Hebrew is gendered according to their new identity. And finally, no progressive ritual or ceremony would be complete without a shehechianu, thanking God for allowing everyone present to reach that moment. Now, this absolutely beautiful ritual captures the true essence of the mikvah experience. The individual who immerses dies, hovers in a state of liminality, then is reborn with a new name and a new self. In this way, Rabbi Kaplan states, the mikvah very much represents the womb. When we emerge from its waters, we are reborn. Now, whether entering the mikvah to purify oneself in the traditional sense, whether entering the mikvah to mark a new beginning when life didn't go as planned, or whether entering the mikvah as a form of self-reflection, the mikvah has always been and continues to be a powerful tool for encountering the divine. Today's Jews hunger for the visceral, for the tangible, for the unique. Some wish to be shaken up, while others wish to be comforted. The ritual of immersion in the mikvah can provide a new opportunity for today's Jews who may feel as if they wish to re-engage with tradition, and the mikvah can provide the bandage for a wounded soul and a withered heart. The sweet, tepid, life-giving waters can wash away our impurities. The quiet solitude beneath its surface can cleanse us so we begin again. Contemporary Jewish poet Aaron Roller captures the pure joy of plunging into this ancient tradition. He writes, let's all go downstairs, all together, to a hole in the basement. And while we're there, we'll take our clothes off, slip off our shoes, let down our hair. Some folks unpeel, just like an onion. Let's get wet. Dive in the mikveh. Let's all be clean. Let's all be pure. Let's all be righteous. Let's all be holy. Let's all show goodwill to one another and be adored by God in heaven and God in earth, because he's the same God, God of our bodies and of his soul and of her spirit. So let's be naked, just like little babies. We have no words, who don't know labels, who aren't blinded by ideologies or by hatred or propaganda. I want to be naked in the mikveh. May we all seek opportunities to engage with Judaism's long-established traditions. May we all find healing and solace in our people's holy rituals. May we all uncover the long-forgotten wells of divine healing and sustenance in our lives. And may we find moments of respite so as to reflect on our past and present and future. So we can look in the mirror and say, wow, this is who I am. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.